for example, has anyone designed a poster out there that I can tweak? You know, great. This place has designed a poster and they used this person and they did it for free. You know, so I got a banner, I think it was actually, you know, designed for free that, you know, we put out every year to advertise the training. It's lots of little things like that, or, you know, running a charity has actually legal requirements with policy and, you know, so you can actually throw out questions like that. What's everyone else doing about this issue? Do you know? How's everyone ensuring that they're meeting the requirements for this? Right. You know, and people ask you for help as well. You know, so it goes both ways. I remember going up to Aberdeen Street Pastors, and Aberdeen Street Pastors was the first street pastors in Scotland to start. And they're quite a bit ahead of most of us. They've got, you know, like 140 odd volunteers. And they're doing all sorts of fresh new projects that have expanded, that originally started from street pastors. You know, they launched new things. And they were a big inspiration for us in Edinburgh. You know, with just things like how to organise volunteers. They have an online website to organise their rota and stuff like that. So we copied them with that. You know, and little things like they encouraged the management group, which is a separate group of street pastors that are part of the management committee, to go on away days together and just spend time getting to know each other and thinking about what we want for Edinburgh Street Pastors, you know, in the future, what we'd like to accomplish. Yeah.
Oh, good. That's really interesting. With, you know, with that, do you have much, would you say, relationship with any groups outside Scotland? Like, I'm potentially thinking some of the main leadership down in London. I know Les Isaac's been up here
a couple of times, yes, to do the questioning.
Is there a good relationship with that part of it?
Yeah. I mean, you know, Les is an incredibly busy guy, but if you send him an email, he does get back to you, and it's not a rushed one, you know.
That's good.
Which is nice. You know, you can ask questions. I think I've phoned him once or twice with certain issues that he's then resolved, which is great. You know.
That's great. Oh, right on. Good. So is there, you know, over the last, you said it's been 6 or 7 years?
So I joined in 2010, so yeah.
Is there any situation that particularly sticks out of your mind as characteristic of the work that you guys have been trying to accomplish in that time?
I think for me, it was sitting in the office one day, and I got a phone call from a guy who said, that he was homeless. He met a street pastor on the streets, and all the street pastor did was have a conversation with them. Didn't offer help to begin with, just listened to their problems, gave them a cup of tea. And then they were about to stand up and leave, and the street pastor said, "Have you tried the Access Centre? They're really great at solving problems." And the chap said it was, you know, if they had just said that at the beginning of the conversation, he probably wouldn't have listened.
Yeah.
But they listened to him, they chatted to him, treated him like he was a person.
Good.
That he felt confident enough to trust that advice.
That's good.
You know, and there was a hope in it, but there wasn't a promise that going to the Access Centre would solve everything. It was just a, you know, have you tried this? You know, you could give this another bash. And the problem with him is that he had been denied a house in Edinburgh by the local authorities, because he was Edinburgh born, Edinburgh based all his life, but he lived 3 years previously in another location. And according to the homeless regulations at the time, don't know if it's still the case, he wasn't legally entitled to a home. He would have to go back to the place he'd been living for 3 years. Which, the place he'd been living, I think he lost a job, so he didn't have any friends there, he didn't have any ways of actually sustaining himself while he was there. But in Edinburgh he had some friends and family, so he just wasn't keen to leave. So what he was planning on doing is spend 3 years on the streets until he was legally entitled to a house. Going to the Access Centre, they wrote a letter to the local authorities and pleaded them to change their decision, which they did. They gave him a house, So he stopped begging and started using the house. And 2 years after that, gave me a phone call and said, I've been 2 years living in a house, all thanks to something a street pastor said. I'd love to give back to the community and be a street pastor. Is that possible?
That's awesome.
I've not been the coordinator for about 5 months now. But at the time of me leaving, he was still in the process of one day stepping in to become a street pastor. I think it's so encouraging to hear that turnaround. Someone receiving help to actually providing help in the community. Being someone of dire need in the community that we meet to someone that is actually able to provide something. Someone that's there to help, care, and listen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. It's very good. At your busiest, with all this work, how much time in a week would you say you had been dedicating to the work?
I was employed at the busiest. I was employed for 3 days a week. It wasn't uncommon for me to do just full time. Hours. Just work all. I've had to quantify it in hours. It wasn't uncommon for me to do 50, 60, hour weeks, as well as my other part-time employment, which at the time was for the church. There was a lot that needed to be done, and I was quite. How to put this? I didn't need to do it. No one asked me to do it. I chose to spend all that time because I wanted to push street pastors on. I wanted to develop street pastors. I haven't spoken much to the person that's taken on my role now, but in order to establish the new roles, I needed to work a lot. Little things like advertising posts. At the same time as training new recruits and advertising. And I set up so that they don't have to work as hard as I did, if that makes sense. Getting funding, I left Street Passes with 1.5 years full-time funding for the people that replaced me as such, which is just incredibly important, for the charity to be financially secure.
That's good.
So yeah, I invested a lot of time and energy, but that was because I chose to, and because there was the option to either just treat it like a 9 to 5, where you clock in, clock out, and don't do a minute more, or I take personal responsibility for anything that's going wrong or anything that I'd like to be improved and do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great.
Probably could have asked for help from a little bit more people, but yeah.
Did you have help available?
Oh yeah. Management committee were really great. I would say when I first started working, the management committee were more advice centred.
Okay.
But more and more, as we went on, a member of the committee encouraged everyone to encourage me to be report based, which would be, here's the problems, how are we going to solve it? So quite often that ended up with members of the management committee saying, right, well, I can do that, I can step in. Which more and more as we did that, we realised how gifted and how skilled the actual committee was and what they had to offer. We could never go back once people started helping out because, for example, one person in the committee had been doing a newsletter for her church. So she started doing a newsletter for street pastors. The quality of the text that this person was doing was just fantastic. I'm actually dyslexic myself. I'm good with knowing what I should say, but I don't often word it as someone would read it. So I started teaming up with her to, for example, if I'm writing a funding application, I know the content that should go down and write it, but she would say, in reading this, I hear what you're trying to say, but it sounds like something else. So she'd reword it to mean what I want it to mean.
Yeah. I've been in the same situation with grant apps there.
There you go. And she would also reduce, somehow she'd say the same things, but with 70%, of the text that I did.
Brevity.
Knocking 30% off it.
Yeah.
You know, so